Hello and a very warm welcome. This is another edition of the Coaching Hour. It's nice to have you with us. Today I'm joined by Mary. Mareka, unfortunately, not able to join us for this edition. And one of our favorite guests here on the Coaching Hour podcast. It's brought to you, as you know, by now in partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. And Mary, you can do the intro today in Mareka's absence because we're both very excited to introduce not only a guest today, but actually a friend.
She is a professional reflexologist, one of the best that I've ever had service, of for reflexology. And then she's not only a reflexologist, she's also a sex coach.
Hmm.
A sex coach, which is very different. And welcome, Veronica. I'm excited to hear what you're going to discuss with us today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mary. I'm really excited to chat about desire today. And I think before we get started, it's also important to just name that these are adult themes and concepts. So please, if your little ones are around, just be aware that we are talking about a grown-up subject around desire. I always encourage talking to your kids about adult things in really safe ways, but maybe you're not ready for that conversation yet. So yeah, just to name that. And also on the tail of that, if we're talking about like really big adult themes, if anything feels like it's triggering you today or anything that comes up and you're not really sure how to deal with it, please just seek, professional help. I'm really here to provide education, and I'm not here as a psychologist or replacing any kind of mental health.
Thanks, Veronica. And of course, you've been with us before. Today's topic, desire, as you say, one word that can mean so much. And just for a bit
Yes.
of context, we have had similar conversations before, and this really is the whole issue of adult intimacy is quite an involved topic. It's certainly not as superficial as one might think. And just to let you know that today we think we're probably going to extend this topic, desire, over 2 sessions because there really is a lot to get into, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And I welcome any questions. So if you feel like, there was something you want to expand on, please feel free to message or drop in the comments some questions, and then we can expand on that on the second one.
Perfect. So let's get into it, so to speak. Desire. Take it away.
Perfect. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Mary. I think I just want to speak to like a little bit about why this work really matters to me. And when I was working with couples, and especially in the field of infertility, there were a lot of questions that were asked of me around pleasure in relationships. And I realized that I was really in a fantastic position to be able to help a lot more people by deep diving into the studies of sexuality and relationships. And as you can imagine, desire is kind of a big component of fertility, right? Like this is really a missing piece that a lot of doctors aren't speaking to. They're talking about a lot of medical things and they miss the mark around the language of desire. I feel like it's really about learning a new language. And these are really complex concepts, and I'm hoping to make them a little bit more relatable today, to just bring in a little bit of fun into a very complex topic. So it's important when we're talking about desire to really also name the fact that there's a big gap in the research. It's impossible for researchers to cover every age group, every culture, every type of relationship. So when we're talking about desire today, we're talking about possibilities, frameworks, scaffolding for you to build your own language within the context of your own relationship to yourself and to your partner. So we're taking away the shoulds and just really allow yourself to see what is your own truth. What comes up for you? What is your own lived experience, right? Because that's all going to add into this recipe that is desire. And if something maybe feels a bit uncomfortable, that's also information. That also lets you know that there's something here for you to maybe look at. So I hope today we can really create like a judgment-free space that's more about learning and curiosity, and just move away from the shoulds of desire. So to create a little bit more fun around desire, I thought we could talk about desire as cake. And who doesn't love eating cake, right? Well, actually, quite a lot of people don't like eating cake. And that's kind of the whole point of this metaphor, is that not everybody is exactly the same. And just like appetite, taste, hunger, desire is a complex combination of different systems. And we need to look at these systems a little bit more individually. Unlike desire, unlike appetite and hunger, however, desire is not a drive, even though I know sometimes people feel like they will die without it, but it does behave a little bit differently. So let's talk about how desire is like eating cake. You can absolutely love cake and just not want to eat cake right now. Even the best kind of cake at 3 a.m. just might not feel like the best idea. The fastest way to ruin cake is to be forced and told you have to eat cake. Sometimes the ingredients need to change. Maybe you are a bit gluten intolerant. Sometimes you just need to heat the oven a little bit more in order to start baking the cake. Maybe the temperature is not quite right, or the timing of the cake is not quite right. Sometimes you've reached the limit to how much cake you can eat that week, but your partner wants one more bite. So here's a question to you guys. Was anybody thinking about cake before you saw cake on the screen or started talking about cake?
Not at all. Not at this time of the morning. Nope.
Right. And now maybe somebody's thinking about their favorite blueberry and chocolate cake from Shed and Silo, right? Maybe as I'm talking about cake, you're kind of remembering how cake smells and you're like, oh, I think I might actually have cake later this afternoon. Possibly you're thinking, the last time I had cake, I got a bit of food poisoning, and the last thing I actually want to do is eat cake now. And that's your body's way of just protecting you from like that thing that made you feel really gross the last time. So when I say that desire is like eating cake, there's many different ways to experience it. And you can love cake, and you can also kind of be fed up of eating cake. Those two things can really exist. Maybe you just want to put sprinkles on your cake. It might not even be that you don't enjoy cake anymore. You just want to add something different to it. So, and not everybody loves chocolate cake, right? That's not a character flaw. Maybe you just like vanilla. So you possibly want cheesecake. And so desire kind of works like that, where you weren't really thinking about cake, and then you saw cake. It's not always spontaneous. Sometimes it's responsive. It's responding to the fact that I've brought this up and now you're seeing this image of cake and I'm talking about cake, and it's like activating these parts in your body where you're like, oh, yeah, cake. That sounds really, really cool. Or maybe you're thinking cake this morning. You love this idea of cake. You're like, when I get home today, I'm going to have cake. And then your banking app tells you you need a new password. And on your 8th attempt, it tells you it can't be the same as the previous password. And you're like, I don't want to eat cake. That's it. Like, I'm done. I'm done. So this is why we need to understand that loving cake doesn't always mean we want to eat cake. And not wanting to eat cake doesn't mean that you hate cake. It's information. It's a way of getting curious. And we need to move away from the person eating the cake and look at the environment in which the cake is being eaten. Those two things can really beautifully coexist.
Very good. I love the metaphor.
Thank you. It's delicious, right? So we're not going to get too deep into this. I put the slide in really to show you the science behind desire. So I don't expect you to understand like all of these processes and everything that's happening. These are just a few ways where science is trying to actually understand the hormones, the nervous system, the context, the relationships, the brain function, the phase of life you're in, the psychology behind desire. It is an extremely complex system. It's not just as simple as I want cake, I'm going to eat cake, right? There are so many things that impact desire. I was doing a course this weekend, and one of the instructors was talking about how grief impacts desire. You know, like how grief just stretches you and changes you in so many different ways. And I also just found that really, really fascinating. There's a lot going on behind the scenes for a lot of people when you're talking about just wanting cake. So how do we start understanding our partner's desire language a little bit more? So we talk about spontaneous and responsive desire. These are the two kind of main systems of desire that we speak of. And I just want to name that not one of them is better than the other. These are just the two different systems. So let's talk about spontaneous desire. It seems to kind of arise on its own. It can just feel like, I'm in the mood for cake. Nothing specific happened. I just woke up this morning. I didn't smell cake. No one showed me a picture of cake. I didn't hear V talking about cake. And I'm like, I feel like cake. And maybe you go to work and you're still thinking, I really want cake. And you get home from work and you kind of say to your partner, should we have cake? And they haven't thought about cake the whole day. And they have no idea what, like, now you want to eat cake? What are you talking about, eat cake? And so this is important to just kind of see where these differences come in between you and your partner. Spontaneous desire is often what we see on TV, right? We often see it in the movies where it's just like this instant spark, this thing that just happens. And it's usually depicted as the normal kind of healthy way that desire shows up. But spontaneous desire is not better or healthier. It's just one of the ways that desire shows up. And I know sometimes when you first start dating someone, it can really feel like everything is spontaneous. You just can't get enough of them. It feels so instant. But what we need to remember is there is a response happening. You're responding to novelty, to the tension of being pursued, to feeling desired. All those happy hormones are happening, the dopamine, the adrenaline, the anticipation, maybe these even fantasy. There's this real feeling of often the two of you being in this like little cocoon together. You haven't really experienced real life stresses, the logistics, who's taking the garbage out, where are we going to live? And so that desire is responding and it feels spontaneous, but it's not. It's actually being activated by all these things. Even often in a new relationship, there's anticipation of what's going to happen next, right? You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. And so these steps are happening where your partner is responding to all of these things. So it might feel spontaneous. And if we compare long-term relationships with the beginning of the relationship to maybe 4 or 5 years in, it's an unfair comparison. And I think it's where it can create a lot of angst. And then when we look at responsive desire, this is the type of desire that responds to a stimulus, right? So it's more like, I wasn't in the mood for cake, but now I'm seeing cake. I wasn't thinking about cake, and then someone spoke about vanilla cake, and now I think I really do want cake. So it's more of a response to something that is happening in the desire. So this is where I was talking about commonly seeing it more in the long-term relationships. It doesn't mean that you don't want cake. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or your partner. It doesn't mean that you're broken. This is all information. This is for you to explore, to get curious, to understand. And very often the spontaneous desire partner will marry a responsive desire partner, right? And then these two people are just missing it completely. They're just speaking different languages. And when we treat desire like an on-off button, we miss the whole picture. And it's about just getting the right recipe or finding the right roadmap and speak a language that you guys both understand. So if you are someone who has more of a spontaneous desire, or you are someone who has more of a responsive desire, the question becomes, how can we support the responsive desire person to get into a space where they have that ability to start feeling more desire, right? These are tools and more language to understand desire better. So we talk about brakes and accelerators. So when we look at accelerators, those are things that make desire more likely. And when we talk about brakes, those are things that slow it down and shut it off, right? I spoke about grief earlier. If you are pressing the accelerator, but the brakes are still on, the car's not going anywhere. And that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the car. And it just means that we need to actually take our foot off the brake so that when we do put our foot down on the accelerator, we're able to actually move the car. Or sometimes that handbrake's up a little. And so you're putting your foot on the accelerator, but the handbrake's up. And so it's kind of like moving, but it's not actually moving the way that a healthy car or a car that we want to move in the way that we want to move it. So if we look at things that are breaks, for example, and this can be true of spontaneous or responsive desire, right? It's not one exclusive to just one type of desire, but we do all experience a lot of these things differently. So stress, overwhelm, mental load, right? Pressure, fatigue, pain, illness, hormonal shifts, feeling rushed, pressured, obligated. If there is unresolved conflict within your relationship, that can really put a brake onto desire. Feeling emotionally disconnected, body images. So again, not wanting to eat cake because of how you feel in your body can have an impact on the person who wants to eat cake with you, because they can often say, well, why don't you want to eat cake with me? I love the way that you look. But it's yourself, it's how you're feeling. Past experiences, we spoke about lived experiences, right? Feeling unsafe in your body or in your relationship. Maybe feeling like you're not enough or you're asking for too much. Maybe it's the dog barking outside the room. You know, safety can mean so many things. And so for many people, especially people with the responsive desire, it doesn't show up until these breaks are released. And it's not about trying harder to want cake. You can imagine that no matter how hard you're pushing that accelerator, it's not going to go anywhere if the brake is firmly on. And so the question really becomes about asking, what's putting the brakes on? And how do we release them? What helps the nervous system feel safe enough? And I know safety is like a word that gets thrown around a lot. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about it. But we're not just talking about physical safety and, you know, oh, well, I'm physically safe and the doors are locked and, you know, whatever else. We're talking about the body and the nervous system feeling safe enough. When that fight or flight is starting to disappear, rest and digest is emerging, that's when desire can start to kind of show. So if you imagine you can hear a fire outside and your body is responding, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire. To be able to actually get into rest and digest and for desire to start emerging, it's really difficult when you're prioritizing survival. And when your body is in survival, it does not prioritize pleasure. So this is where the biology of desire comes in, where it's not just a choice. It's like my body is bracing, my nervous system is on edge, I feel pressure, I feel judged, I feel rushed, I don't feel emotionally okay right now. And so when that fire is like around the corner, even if the cake is amazing, even if you normally love cake, even if you really are thinking, I actually really want cake, to feel that in your body can be extremely difficult. So the system needs to feel safe. And it also, again, it doesn't mean that you don't love your partner. It's not got to do with attraction. And it's not that you're rejecting someone. It just means that your nervous system is actually busy with something else. And safety isn't about perfection. It's not about being calm all the time. It's just about being safe enough. We talk about just a little bit of ease, enough connection, enough space for desire to somewhat land and to start developing. So we're really saying, how can I help my partner's body, or how can my partner help themselves? Because I also don't feel we should put all the responsibility onto our partners, to feel okay enough to enjoy cake, right? It's not about drama, diagnosing. It's just about understanding how the body works.
I'm just thinking, Veronica, that breaks, I think, are very often released when you go away. Because I'm just thinking about what you're talking about, and the general consensus, I think, would be that the appetite for cake increases when you go on holiday. When you take a break, it's nice to have cake because you're away, you generally feel safe, there are fewer distractions. Depending on where you're going, very often there aren't cats and dogs, you know, jumping on the bed, wanting to share your cake or barking outside, which is particularly concerning if it's the cat that's barking. So all of those things, if you're away, very often I think that helps. And so things that we very often might blame on ourselves, as in, oh, it must be me putting the brakes on here, or conversely, it must be my partner wanting to put the brakes on. I think those
Yeah.
Very often those thoughts are untrue and rooted in false belief.
100%, Paul. And I think when you talk about going away, yes, there's rest and digest, but also there's novelty often. It's someplace new. There's like a new bed, there's a new experience. You're seeing new things. There's a bit of freedom. There's a bit of time. If you're staying in, a hotel, you can maybe have a bit more privacy. So exactly what you're talking about, the dog kind of coming in. And you also maybe have more time to be present. And often on a holiday, you've driven down or whatever, you've chatted the whole way down. So you have a bit of connection.
Mm.
And so by the time you even get to holiday, you've got excitement, you've got connection, you've got rest and digest. There's so many layers to an experience like that that are just really beautiful for taking the breaks off.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
conversely, and I
And
see you're about to get into it now, with what's on the screen in front of us as we're watching this, not only listening to it, accelerators. I imagine the opposite applies. So there will be fewer brakes and more accelerators.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think some people also have very sensitive accelerators. So some people can really rev up quite quickly, and others need a little bit more time for their accelerators to rev up. So it's not just as simple as, I want cake, why don't you? I'm stressed, I'm tired, I feel disconnected, right? So it is definitely all those things.
Hmm.
So where couples get stuck a little bit is when we have really different expectations of desire. When we compare early relationships, when we take things really personally, that can feel like a lot of pressure. And when there's a little bit of lack of language to explain our own experience, even. And so these are some of the languages that we can use. These are really, really fun. So again, these are not absolutes, and I can't go too much into them because I don't want to upset Facebook's algorithm by talking about um, certain things. So I'm just going to introduce a few of these different ways, these different languages that we can use when it comes to desire, and not to put anybody into a box. But so I'm sure we've all heard of the 5 love languages, and
Yep.
these are the 5 lust languages, right? We all have different ways of experiencing this in our body. So I've listed a couple there. I see, for the sake of time, maybe not to go too much into all of them. But basically, the lust languages tell us how somebody might enjoy cake. And another really fun way that I enjoy using different languages is the erotic blueprints. And this kind of tells us what flavor of cake or maybe what sprinkles our partner might enjoy. And this is an opportunity for you guys to explore as couples, but also for people to explore for themselves. Which one of these resonates? Which one of these really can give you a bit of a roadmap into your partner's desire? And there's not just one way, we're often a combination of all of them. So there might be one primary way that you can kind of feel, but there's usually a blend of all of them. So again, these frameworks are boxes. And what I find amazing is all of these frameworks have connection, safety, and communication. Really seems to be at the heart of virtually all of these. So it's about getting curious and not just about naming and blaming. So you can see everything we've kind of spoken about today. It's like desire is information. It is communication. It is not owed just because you're in a relationship. And I feel like when desire comes with, I did this and then you owe me that, that can also really, then it becomes a, what's the word when you like, it's left me, but it will come back to me. That's not really about like holding a relationship. That's really about an exchange almost.
Was it a weapon that you wanted to say?
No, it's a weapon, but it's like I want to say when you buy something and you give them money, but then within this context, that just alters everything. Exchange. It's kind of like an exchange, right? It
Or
becomes
commodity.
yeah, I did this and then you owe me that. So yeah.
Bartering.
So it's a bartering, and then also you're not doing the thing because you want to just do the thing for your partner. You're doing the thing because you want something in exchange, right? And that's really then is a huge break for a lot of people. It puts a lot of pressure on it. So having conversations like, my desire works like this with your partner can be really beautiful. getting curious instead of blaming. So yeah, I think that kind of takes us up to the one thing I really want everybody to take away from today, and that is desire isn't about trying harder to want cake. It is about understanding why cake feels appealing sometimes and not other times. Pressure kills desire for cake. Safety feeds it, and curiosity makes it interesting again. You are allowed to love cake and not want it right now. You're allowed to want different flavors of cake, and you're allowed to change the recipe. And most importantly, you don't owe anyone cake.
Very good. It's the first time I've ever heard this conversation in a manner that really has made it, and forgive the pun, digestible. You know, you've related it and linked it to cake, and I think it just speaks so beautifully to what is actually going on in our minds with our appetite. It really is very, very well done, and putting it together like this and presenting it like this. That's fabulous. And obviously we haven't got into too much detail because this is part one of what may be 2 or 3 parts. We are running very quickly out of time. So just as a summary, your thoughts, Veronica?
I think I would just like to say that when we look at people, we're really complex systems, and the way we deal with stress is different. The way we deal with, so many different areas of our life. Like some people who are stressed will want a group of people, some people will run, some people will want to journal. So why do we think that the way that we approach arguments, the way we approach family, the way we approach all relationships, we're all very individual, but that desire looks like just one thing? It should be like this, and we put those shoulds on our partner, and then we get really disappointed when those aren't reached in our expectations. So I think that's really, how I just sum up this for me.
It would be a bit like...
I take what really stands out for me is that the expectations are dropped.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Is when you drop expectations and look deeper.
And isn't that
it's exactly that.
Of most things, not only desire, or in today's case, cake, I think in life in general, if you lower your expectations, not to say that you go through life never wanting anything or never having any desire, because obviously at some point, hopefully you would like some cake. But yeah, to manage those expectations, I think that's well observed, Mary, as always.
I think I prefer that.
There is sorry.
Sorry. I think managing your expectations for me rather than lowering. Like you can have an expectation, but it's managing that expectation within the limits of your partnership and your agreed desire conversations. Yeah. Sorry, Mary Karen.
So having expectations and not being attached to any outcome.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh, beautifully said. Yeah.
Which is where we are going to leave this for the sake of time, and we will definitely be picking up this conversation, Veronica. I think, you've been extremely insightful. If you have been listening to this and you haven't seen some of the content or any of the content because you're listening to it, not watching it, I would encourage you to actually watch the video side of the podcast, because some of what Veronica put on the screen, I think, will help you to make sense of what was said. With my sort of radio hat on, I was listening to the conversation as well, and it does make sense, but I think it's definitely complemented by being able to see the words and the graphics and the pictures that you had on the screen. So thank you very much for that, Veronica. Thank you to you for watching and listening and joining us on this journey. And we really look forward to you engaging with us. If you do have any questions, and of course, if you'd like to reach out to us, you know where to find us here on the Coaching Hour and Coaches Network South Africa. And also Veronica's details, they are on the screen at the moment. If you are watching this, you can see them. If you're listening, well, you can get to the website bewelltoday.com. That's www.bewelltoday, all one word.com. And all the details are there, which I won't give out now because you probably won't remember them. The phone number and the email address, everything you need is on that website. Thank you so much, Veronica Tift, who is a holistic sex coach and reflexologist. We so love spending time with you, and I'm really looking forward to us catching up again. Thank you very, very much.
Perfect. And thank you for your artsy support today, Paul.
Pleasure. Ladies, thank you. We will leave it there and look forward to
Thank you so
you
much, Paul.
joining us for another one soon, Veronica. Thank you, Mary. Bye-bye for now.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Bye.